for my master's project, I did a thesis and I did it on the history of jump rope. And the cool thing was, whenever I went to my professor, I had jump rope on my brain. And I was like,
as always.
Yeah, I was like, I kind of want to do
I
it
feel
on
like that's
jump
such a
rope.
thing for competitors. Like you can never separate jump rope from like anything you do ever.
Right.
Yeah, and I went to him. I was like, I kind of want to like do a survey and try to get things in rec centers, and it's like that was my idea at first. And then he kind of paused, and I was like, oh no, he doesn't want jump rope. He doesn't want me to do it. So I was like, or I can talk about football and do whatever. And but here's the cool thing. He was like, Nick, you have something special with jump rope, and I think you should ride it. And I said, really? He was like, you've been doing this for so long. And I learned that he was the Parks and Recs director at a place out in like Michigan.
Get out of here.
He actually did recreation double dash competitions, which they would send over to the Apollo. So he actually knew about jump rope a little bit. So he was like, Nick, there's so much history there, and you have so much history with the sport. I think you should write on the history of jump rope. And I was like, for my project, that's what you want me to do? He was like, yes. I was like, done.
You're like, sweet. You sat down at a computer, you busted it out in like 24 hours, and you're like, sweet, that was really fun.
We wish.
Exactly. So, no, I mean, it was awesome to do that project. So I did that. I passed my thesis. And so, yes, I do have some
a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, I do have some knowledge here that can help. So you're right. Richardson Dolly helped get that going in the late 60s.
With single rope.
With single rope. And then David Walker with double dutch in the early 70s in New York. And there were a couple different organizations out there. So there was IRSO. There was also WRSF. World Rope Skipping Federation. There was ADDL, and then there was NEDL. So there was 4 organizations going on out there. IRSO and WRSF, although they sounded like international names, they were basically a U.S. entity that just had some international friends come over
to compete.
So it was still more of a national event, if that makes sense. But they just kind of had some some international friends come over.
Gotcha.
And then you can probably see this, I think, on one of the websites, probably USA Jump Rope, but WRSF and IRSO, they ended up combining into what you see now as USA Jump Rope back in 1995. So when they came together, I think they had 6 seats on the board for IRSO, 6 seats on the board for WRSF, and that's kind of how they formed that. With ADL and NDL, I honestly didn't get a lot of information there, unfortunately, this time. But I did learn that, their competitions that was the first ever competition that started in the U.S. So ADL is the oldest standing organization. I think they started back in 1973. I'll have to double check my source on that, but 1973. And so they're the longest standing organization that was doing competitions to date right now.